What way then is a person putting their money into the system? How do they create their money? Is it that?
That's a very common question that everybody has. And I think it's because we don't understand money. So what we're saying is I want to use this alternate money. And the only way I think I can get money into it is by using something else that I secretly in my heart think of as real money. Okay. So I'm going to ask you, is this real money? When you say, how do I get my money into the system? Is this what you're talking about?
Well, I know that the way that's the way that actually buys assets, unfortunately. But I know that even the piece of paper, the numbering, say like the British pound and everything, the fact that they use the pound number and the thing at different sizes, it even means on paper when you investigate it that it's actually not money, yet people treat it as money, and then they can exchange it for services or goods. That piece of paper.
Okay. So you'd admit this is just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever seen this piece of paper before?
Bank of Zimbabwe. There's a lot of zeros in that one. Is it a billion? Is that a
Okay.
100 billion or 100 million?
This is 100 trillion.
Oh, trillion is it right?
$100 trillion. Okay. So this kind of emphasizes that this is just a piece of paper. And I have several different forms of money here that I love to show around. Now, this one is interesting. This is from 1957, and it looks an awful lot like this one, but it's a little bit different. I don't know if you can see up there, but this is a silver certificate.
Yeah, like I think it was 71 that Nixon kind of removed it from the back gold.
Now, so this is actually based on silver. I'll just show you a couple of other ones. This one is a Hudson Valley Current. Have you heard of this one?
No.
So this is one of the notable attempts to create a private currency. And so this is just a group of people in the United States who have created their own currency. And it's fairly modern. It has a barcode on it and a QR code. And it's fairly beautiful and is totally separate from government. And so this is what I would call a mutual credit system. I'm going to show you another one. This is called the Utah Goldback. Have you heard of this before?
No.
This is a bill, but it's not just paper. It's made out of gold. So this is a form of physical gold. Obviously, we have traditional gold coins. You know, I'm going to ask you, which of these is real money?
A lot of people think the gold is the real money, but
Okay.
has that, because I know about the diamonds, the way the diamonds with the bears, how they manipulated the market, is the gold similar? Because is there a lot more than we think there is? I mean, I know that they're investigating it at the moment. I don't know, has it been announced with Fort Knox and all the gold and...
Yeah, I don't think we know the answer to that.
Exactly. And I know in the UK as well, there's I think it was a Gordon Brown or something sold off all the gold when it was very low. It seems to be another manipulation in the market.
Well, it definitely is. So what's the difference between this and this? And I guess I'll show you a silver coin. So here's a silver dollar. What's the difference between a silver dollar and the silver certificate?
Well, I suppose well, I don't know about the silver certificate, but if we look at the other normal money, well, I mean, that should, in theory, you should be able to request physical silver for that money when it's saying that it's a fraction, whatever rate it is at the time. And it shouldn't create inflation as well when it's done properly.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to introduce a concept here for our discussion. I'm going to call this equity money, and I'm going to call this credit money. Now, you understand that this is a note payable. You understand what that means? So we use the term in the US an IOU. This is an IOU issued by the Federal Reserve against this. So the idea is this is going to be held on reserve somewhere, and this can circulate out in the economy. And when I get tired of using this, I can go somewhere and I can get this back again. Now, this is an object. This is a tangible commodity And this is something I could use. It's silver, so I could make a teacup out of it, or a spoon, or something. It has utilitarian value. It's durable and it's divisible, and it does a lot of the things that make it good money. But this is a little bit more usable because it's easier for me to carry around and use. And so what we do is we create an IOU against the equity money. So I call this equity money. I call this credit money. And these are two totally different forms of money. And this is equity money made to look like credit money, but it's not credit money. And I've got another form of money here, which is what I would call private credit money. And this is just a personal check. We don't see these very much anymore in the world, but I could write out a personal IOU and I could send it to you. And this literally creates money. Now, it does have a man in the middle, as we talked about. It has to go through a bank and bounce out somewhere else, but it is possible for me to create credit money. So let's talk about why Bitcoin kind of got off on the wrong foot. When they designed Bitcoin, they said, okay, we all agree that this is the ideal money. And I can see the appeal of starting off on that foot to say this is the ideal money because it has a lot of appeal. But let's talk to all the people that think this is ideal money, or even that think that this Goldback is ideal money. How many of you are using this kind of money for your day-to-day purchases?
None. Well, unless they're doing it in some countries, but that's not what they're doing. And the way it factors as well, like depending on what you're buying, you're not going to be carrying around with that. That on the other side might has more work better.
Yeah. So some people say, well, it's because it's not divisible enough. Well, the Goldback solves this. You know, this is 1/1000th of an ounce. It's worth maybe a couple of dollars. So this should solve that problem. But even though there are Goldbacks in Utah, people are not using Goldbacks for their regular purchases. Why not? Why are we not using this? Well, it's not efficient. It's still not very divisible, even though it's only $2. It does, you know, it's difficult to use. And I have to carry a stack of these around my wallet, and I have to keep them. And if somebody knocks me over the head with a pipe and these are in my back pocket, he can take them, and I can lose them. I can drop them somewhere. They're just not as efficient. What people are accustomed to these days is paying with their phone, or maybe if they're old like me, paying with their credit card. That's much more efficient. So let's go back to the way this started. The authors of blockchain said this is the ideal currency, but we want to make it digital so that we can do our purchases on a computer or on a phone. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to make a digital coin. We're going to make digital gold. And this terminology is all through Bitcoin. We have Bitcoin Gold, we have Bitcoin Cash. We're trying to emulate gold. But now that it's digital, now that we're making a digital token, which essentially is a number, it's just a piece of information now, a piece of digital information instead of a tangible asset. How are we going to transmit that effectively? Like, how can I send this to you in Poland? Well, I really can't send it to you tangibly because it doesn't actually exist. It's just a piece of information. All I can transmit to you is kind of an affirmation that you own it because it's just this thing that exists out in the world. So we end up with something called the double spending problem because I create this digital asset and now we have to establish the question of who owns it. Now, let's go back to this. How do we establish ownership of equity money?
It's usually he who holds it, or
okay, he who holds it. And what if I'm in a room of 5 people and I believe that I own this and the other 4 people reject that notion?
depends on the room you're in.
Okay. And what if they're bigger than me?
Exactly.
Do I own this really? Okay. So with equity money, we need a civil society. We need a set of laws and practices and beliefs. We need the notion of private property ownership. That's a construct of civil society that says I own this. So everybody in the room has to agree that I own this. In the case of blockchain, we need a public ledger which is accessible to the entire world. And the entire world needs to acknowledge that this Satoshi that is on the blockchain is owned by this digital ID that I own and control. So we need public consensus in order to support the notion of equity money. Well, who has to agree in the case of private credit money? How many people do we need to concede in the case of an IOU?
Well, you need yourself to create it, and then the bank that validates.
So we need three. We need the three in the case of this private money.
Yeah.
But in MyChips, we're going to take that man out of the middle. So we really only need me and you. So we can have an entirely private blockchain now that only consists of me and you, and we can transmit money across that blockchain. And I only need the consensus of two people. So two things go away with the MyChips model. One is the double spending problem, because there's only one place to spend my token, if you want to call it a token. And the other one is the scalability issue. Is I don't need the consensus of the whole world. I only need the consensus of my trading partner. But what's the real problem with private credit if there's only one place I can spend my money?
Getting it?
Are you getting it? So if I send you money and I send you a check, there's only one place. Let's say I give you an IOU. Let's use the IOU example. I say, Roy, I owe you $100. Whenever you need anything, you let me know. If you need to go out to lunch and something like that, and I give you this IOU, you can only spend that with me. It's money. I created money. I gave you an IOU. It's a medium of exchange. It's a storage of value. We can even use it to denominate in dollars or ounces of gold or anything else that we want to do. So that IOU is real money, but you can only spend it with me. So whereas Bitcoin developed a conundrum with the double spending problem, MyChips or any private credit system develops a different problem, which is what we call the fungibility problem. Yes, I've got this thing, it's valuable, but I can only spend it in one place. And what I would like to do is when I receive this IOU from Roy, I'd like to spend it over here with Bob to buy something else that Roy doesn't have to offer me. So with MyChips, the challenge was, how do we use distributed ledger technology to be able to spend these private credit tokens in places other than the place that we got them from? Now, I won't go into a lot of detail unless you want to, but that's called the MyChips Lift algorithm. And it's a distributed algorithm. You could think of it as a smart contract if you're into Bitcoin terminology, but it's not one smart contract. It's a propagation of contracts that go through the network, very much like Ripple for those who are familiar with a Ripple transaction. And it bounces through the network and transmits value through the person that issued you the IOU, and it eventually lands with someone else in the network. And we can do those transactions in milliseconds now across a distributed network, so that you can really propagate value to pretty much anyone in the world safely and effectively. But the money, the value is still built upon these private contracts that exist in these distributed ledgers that exist throughout the world.